All right, welcome back. We're going to be covering the second lecture. This is Introduction to the Refrigeration Cycle. So in the last lesson, what we did is we covered the basic components of a refrigeration system. What you're looking at here is a little different drawing, and this is the way it is in the real world. You're going to have a lot of different drawings of different types of systems. You're going to see a lot of different things, but what I wanted to do is expose you to this. If you look really closely, even though there's a lot more stuff in this drawing, you're going to see we have the same basic components as we covered in the last lecture. So let's start out by identifying once again the major components of any refrigeration cycle, and then we're going to dig a little bit deeper and take a look at what is happening in this system. And this is really going to help. This is a good foundation of what we're trying to learn here. And so this is going to be really valuable information, I think. Okay, so let's always start at our compressor. As we mentioned earlier, this is the heart of any refrigeration system. And what this compressor does is it creates a pressure difference. And in just a few minutes here, I'll cover what exactly is going on here. The next thing we have is we have our condenser. Now, again, what the condenser does is it takes whatever energy that's been absorbed by the refrigeration system and it's going to get rid of it. Okay, so it's basically going to dispense with that energy that it's absorbed. Usually this is done into the outside air, but not always. Sometimes it's into another, like a water source or something like that. All right. Then we have our thermostatic expansion valve, also referred to as a metering device. And again, what this does is meters the amount of refrigerant. So basically it creates a restriction, and it meters the amount of refrigerant up to what we call a heat exchanger or an evaporator. Okay. Now the evaporator, as we covered earlier, does the exact opposite of what a condenser does. Okay, what it does is it actually absorbs heat from the system, from the process, and that's what creates the cooling effect. Whether it is you're cooling air, in the case of air conditioning, you're creating chilling if you're trying to chill a fluid, that type of thing. All right, so let's go ahead and take a close look at what's happening here. All right, so what we're doing here is we're going to start back at our compressor. And what we're going to do here is we're going to cover the state of the refrigerant when it leaves the compressor. Okay, so basically a compressor does just what the name is. It compresses. So on the outlet of the compressor, you're going to have a high pressure gas. Now this is refrigerant. This is a chemical that is designed, it's engineered to transfer heat. It's all it does. If you hear a referral to a refrigerant or Freon, it's a specially engineered gas that rapidly performs a state change that is designed to transfer heat from one place to another. All right. So the refrigerant comes out of our compressor to high pressure gas, and when it goes into our condenser, there's a miracle that happens here as the condenser removes the heat from this refrigerant, this high pressure gas. It has a state change. Okay, so basically what's happening here is it goes in here as a high pressure gas, and by the time that refrigerant comes out after the heat's been removed, it actually turns into a high pressure liquid, or what I'm calling here HPL, high pressure liquid. So that liquid, once it's formed, it's going to come all the way back here. This is solid liquid here, and it makes its way up to our expansion valve or metering device. Now once it goes in here, there's a pressure drop that occurs, and we're going to cover this a little bit later in the lessons. And what it does is it meters the refrigerant. It's very similar to putting your finger on a hose. Okay, it's creating a restriction, and that process of creating the restriction changes this liquid from a high pressure liquid to a low pressure liquid. It just creates a little bit of a pressure drop, and as it proceeds up here to our evaporator or our heat exchanger, this is going to go ahead and start to boil. Now I'm going to give you an example here that a lot of people don't really think about too much. But if you ever go down to the electronics store and you buy one of those little air cleaner things, where you go to clean your keyboard or your CPU. Next time you get your hands on one of those things, after you use it, you'll notice that the can is getting really cold. All right, and actually, it's if you put your ear up to it real closely, you can actually hear the bubbling going on inside of there. And they're using a refrigerant type gas as a propellant. Okay, so it's the same effect when you're pressing that button at the top. You're reducing the pressure in the can, and basically you're creating a pressure drop, and that's causing that liquid in that can to start to boil, and it's actually turning in the surface of the can is turning into a little evaporator. Okay, so that's probably the easiest way to understand how it's actually working. So as the refrigerant is going through this heat exchanger, it's picking up heat, which is what we want it to do, right? So it's actually removing heat from the process, whatever that is, whether it's an air conditioner, refrigerator, whatever. So after it goes through here, so remember, it goes into the low pressure liquid, and it goes through it, and it's boiling, picking up heat, doing its thing, and then when it comes out, it's a fully gaseous state, right? So there's a complete state change here. It goes into low pressure liquid, comes out of low pressure gas, and then it starts all over again. That is the process of refrigeration. So what we're going to learn in the future lectures here is we're going to actually understand more about how this process works, and we're going to understand how to actually use what we're learning in this class to actually troubleshoot a refrigeration system. It's going to be really exciting. Make sure you stick around.